Hello and welcome. We are Group 3 and today we are taking a good look into how different countries tackle some of the most pressing challenges in healthcare. Today we are focusing on medical device and healthcare affordability, a topic that highlights both innovation and inequity across systems. We get a diverse group of speakers. Me, Sebastian, will cover the introduction of Australian market. Isha, Aditya, and Aryan will look at the other countries, while Aakansh will provide a bigger picture on policy context for the issue at hand. So let's get started. According to Commonwealth Fund study back in 2021, Australia's healthcare ranked third among 11 high-income countries. Now, if you look at the data, Australia's GDP spending on healthcare is relatively efficient, sitting just below 10%. Equity is one of our strengths. We rank first, meaning income-related disparities are smaller compared to peers. But even with equity, cost problems are common. Around 26% of low-income and 19% of high-income Australians report cost-related access problems. We scored poorly on access to care, ranked 8 out of 11, largely because of issues in affordability. According to the Australian Prudential Regulation Authority, private healthcare insurance payouts show depression. Data from November 2020 show over 89 cents of every dollar in premium has gone straight back to members in claims. That is unsustainable if claim keeps growing faster than premium income. So let's dive into issues. Researchers like David and Mandala Consulting Firm argue that the problem lies in the outdated prescribed list of medical device and human tissue, or commonly known as the PL. It's been around since 1985. Well, it was meant to regulate prices, it's now inflating them instead. Reforms are being discussed, like substituting some hospital care with home care, potentially saving hundreds of millions. Or as what I think should be, reforming the procurement system for medical devices. Right now, Australians pay on average 30 to 100% more than international benchmark for the same devices. For example, hip replacement stem can cost 70% more here than in New Zealand. Even after government reforms since 2022, results have been underwhelming. Spending on device still rose by nearly 4% in 2024. So in short, Australia's healthcare looks efficient and equitable on paper. But affordability, especially for medical devices in private healthcare, is still a real challenge. Now, let's take a closer look at what is going on with the PL and its reform, and also what other countries have done.
Thanks to Sebastian for the setup. I will zoom in on the prescribed list of medical devices, or PLMD. This sets the minimum payment private insurer must make for the listed device, so private patients pay nothing. It began as a way to guarantee access, but over time grew into thousands of items with fixed benefits and little transparency. In 2022, the pro-thesis list was modernized into today's PLMD with independent pricing benchmark. Here's the core problem. In private care, the surgeon chooses, the hospital buys, and the insurer must pay the listed benefit. In public hospital, state tenders and pay lower prices. That gap created a classic issue, a principal agent problem because the chooser isn't the payer. Asymmetry information because real prices were hidden in the contracts. And moral hazard because once insured, there is a little pressure to control cost. With community rating, higher devices costs spill into everyone's premium. From 2022, reforms began to align private benefits toward public benchmarks in stages. 40% of the gaps in 2022, 20% in 2023, and 20% across 2024 to 25. General consumables were removed, items regrouped, and IHACPA now sets benchmarks. Economically, this is a yardstick pricing that uses public tenders as the reference. My take: incentives are cleaner, transparency is better, and access is intact, but device spending still rose in 2024, so price pressure hasn't gone away.
Let's see what other countries have done. First, Germany. Like many other European countries, it uses a GDRG system, a German diagnosis-related group system. While each European country may have its own version of DRGs, they share many similarities. This differs with the Australian private healthcare system, which uses a PL system. Under the DRG model, hospitals are paid a fixed amount based on the patient diagnosis or the procedure performed. This encourages hospitals to negotiate with suppliers to get the best prices. In results, the prices are much lower compared to the PL system. In Germany, this DRG system applies to both public and private hospitals. In German private hospital, payment for beds, surgeries, and devices follow the DRG tariff. However, doctors' fees are handled under a separate scheme. In contrast, Australia uses the PL model for private healthcare, while public hospitals follow a DRG-based system. Okay, next, let's see what other countries have done.
Brazil. Now let's shift our focus to New Zealand, which provides an interesting case because while it shares a beverage-style healthcare system with Australia, it takes a very different approach when it comes to managing costs, especially for pharmaceuticals and medical devices. The major difference is Pharmac. New Zealand's pharmaceutical management agency, unlike Australia, where medical device prices are negotiated in a more fragmented way, Pharmac is centralized and aggressive in its approach. One of our studies, Bhagavati 2024, describes how Pharmac uses tools such as comparative tendering, bundling, risk-sharing contracts, and reference pricing to secure pharma deals. Raghavati provides an example where, without Pharmac's intervention, the cost of certain medical devices could have skyrocketed up to 2,399 New Zealand dollars. And instead, thanks to Pharmac, the same medical device price is low as $81.5. This is an enormous difference and it shows how much leverage a single national negotiator can have. Francis and Pavan and Francis also point out that while the overall population is highly satisfied with subsidized medicines and devices, access issue persists for marginalized groups. In addition, operating within cap budgets means that not any new or innovative device immediately accessible. So compared to other OECD countries, New Zealand spends relatively less. Only around 880 New Zealand dollars annually on medical devices and gives a strong return in terms of affordability. Now let's moving on to Sweden. We've got a very different broad landscape. The medical device market is valued around $2.7 billion, and demand has grown significantly since COVID-19, especially for implants and assistive technologies. What makes Sweden unique is how it integrates regulation, safety, and innovation. A study by Nirupan et al. 2013 emphasizes Sweden's extensive use of the regional registries such as PCAF for retinal implants, which track outcomes and transparency. These registries provide data not only for medical safety but also evaluating device effectiveness and cost efficiency. Sweden also ties policies close to NCAR, National Competent Authority reports. This strong emphasis on data and safety helps Sweden maintain both public trust and efficient decision making. Another distinctive feature is Sweden's use of pay for performance, which Eleanor Glencar 2014 described as financial incentives given to providers for delivering high quality and affordable care. But Sweden not always have the lowest medical devices. The system it ensures value for money through efficiency, decentralization, and accountability. Now let's turn to France. France follows a Bismarck style of healthcare, meaning it relies heavily on public health insurance, society social, but also with mandatory health contributions from both employer and employees. It also aligns with the EU's regulation for medical devices. Modern Law 2024 highlights how France manages reimbursement for individuals through official lists maintained by the HAS. One example is the list of medical telemonitoring, which supports digital health and device integration into everyday care. When it comes to pricing, France performs extremely well when it comes to its peers like Australia. Girone.2030 explains how the expensive negotiation between the HAS and the CEPS, France has been able to achieve much lower device prices than countries with centralized negotiation. This dual process of evaluation and negotiation ensures that device prices are affordable. So to summarize, New Zealand shows the power of aggressive centralized negotiations through farm hacks. Sweden demonstrates how registry safety indicators and incentive schemes can create an efficient and equitable system. And France illustrates how EU integration, digital health, and innovation and structural negotiation can balance cost control with forward-looking innovation. Each country offers valuable lessons on how to approach medical device prices and healthcare efficiency.
Now let's move on over to the United States, the world's biggest medical devices market, worth over 200 billion US dollars. It's powered by cutting-edge R&D, strong venture capital, and global giants like Medtronic, Abbott, and Johnson & Johnson. What makes the US really fascinating is how fast it innovates. The FDA doesn't just regulate, it sets the global standard. Chatterjee24 explained that the FDA now uses real-world data in approvals, making the process more flexible, but also raising concerns about consistency and reliability. Unlike Australia's universal Medicare, the US healthcare system is fragmented. It's a mix of private insurers, Medicare, and Medicaid. That competition drives quick adoption of new tech, but it also means price gaps. So, for example, the same cardiac implant might cost twice as much depending on your insurance and whether you're in Arizona or North Dakota, for example. Regulatory reform in the US is also changing the game. C-Theater24 note that the US is leading with accelerated approval pathways to fast-track high-impact devices. What this means is that it wants to get innovation to patients faster, but sometimes this means compromising on long-term safety data. And then there's AI. Pilke et al. 25 highlight how AI-based tools are reshaping diagnostics in the USA, with the FDA creating special routes for machine learning devices. The goal here is to balance innovation and safety. On the business side, Shaman Modi et al. 24 find that US firms succeed by being open and adaptable, forming partnerships and scaling ideas fast. So, the US is both the lab and the marketplace, bold, innovative, but still struggling with equitability. The next country I'm going to be discussing is the Netherlands, a significantly smaller market of only about $5 to $6 billion, but one that really and consistently punches above its weight. It's home to Philips and a network of startups, hospitals, and universities leading in e-health and AI diagnostics. Collaboration between industry and academia in the country drives steady export growth. which is a great example of innovation clustering. Still, challenges exist. 10th Abdomen et al. 2020 found big price differences all across Dutch hospitals for common medical products, which points to transparency issues. Partman's 2023 add that inducement, which are financial incentives in purchasing, also remain a big concern in the country, calling for stronger oversight. Finally, Enzing et al. 2020 explain how the Netherlands uses health technology assessments, or HTAs, to keep evaluating devices after they have entered the market, making sure that they're safe, effective, and worth the cost. So, compared to Australia, both countries, US and Netherlands, rely on imports, but while Australia is a regional demand hub in the Asia Pacific, the Netherlands is a more export driven innovation hub. So, while the US leads with scale and speed, the Netherlands shows collaboration, transparency, and smart policy being effective, and something that can keep even smaller markets globally competitive.
This is Aryan Araf. Now I'll be discussing my part in the podcast assignment for health economics, where I will discuss about the medical equipments and devices market in countries like Latvia and Luxembourg. Now, first, let us start with Luxembourg. Luxembourg is the innovation with European backbone. It is a small but strategic country in Europe. Back in 2015, during its European Union Council presidency, Luxembourg prioritized reforming medical device legislation, aiming for more patient-centered and innovation system. Today, Luxembourg is pushing hard on health tech as a part of its economic diversification. Think medical devices, in vitro diagnostics, and especially digital health. Conferences and task forces have been launched to tackle key issues like digital device regulation and reimbursement. The market is growing steadily. USD 197.6 million projected in 2025, with cardiology devices leading at over USD 26 million. Latvia, now on to Latvia. According to a 2020 analysis by Nadezhda Semjonova in Economics and Business, Latvia's medical device manufacturing grew 10.7% annually from 2014 to 2018, far outpacing the EU average. It's big, but the market is tiny in EU terms, only 0.02% of total EU turnover. And a lot of these growth depends on just one or two key exporters. There are some limitations in inconsistent data, regulatory burdens for SMEs, and outdated device registries that haven't been properly cleaned up. Now let's head down under to Australia, where regulation is tight but structured. Medical devices that are overseen by Therapeutic Goods Administration, or the TGA, devices are classified by risk, must be registered in the ARTGA, and follow strict post-market surveillance. Australia's market is massive compared to Luxembourg or Latvia. In Australia, it's around USD 5.6 billion in 2023. It emphasizes cost effectiveness, clinical impact, and faster recovery times. Now let us head down to the comparison. Australia has large, well-regulated market focused on outcomes. Luxembourg is using policies to drive innovation and cross-border care. Latvia is growing fast but depends heavily on a few players and lacks broadened players and infrastructures. Recommendations for Luxembourg and Latvia: streamline approvals. Australia's risk-based approach could help reduce red tape for SMEs, boost post-market surveillance. Continuous safety monitoring is key. Invest in R&D and human capital, strengthen clinical infrastructure. Finally, whether it's Australia's structure, Luxembourg's innovation agenda, or Latvia's fast but fragile growth, there's something each market can learn from the others. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sebastian, Aryan, Aditya, and Isha. Across systems, the policy goal is the same: keep care affordable, protect access, and reward useful innovation. For Australia, the diagnosis is clear. A price gap and weak incentives push device spending up and into premiums. The PLMD reforms are a step forward, pushing private payment closer to public prices and improving transparency. The risk is balance. Too much tolerance above public prices means insurer may still overpay, but too little could squeeze hospitals. That's why government is reviewing the settings through 2025 formal review. My 3 recommendations are simple. First, refresh and publish benchmark prices annually and adjust the tolerance with public data. Second, make insurer prove lower device costs flow into their premium filings with APRA. Third, pilot bundled payments for device-heavy procedures like hips and knees with quality safeguard, just as New Zealand does. Success means three things: slower growth in device spend, no new out-of-pocket cost, and stable or better quality. In short, fix the yardstick and force pass-through and test bundles. That's how PLMD can bend the premium curve while protecting patients' access.